Hello and welcome to Gierok Farms. In this video, we're going to talk about the stock tanks behind our barn for our waters for our milking herd, and then we're also going to talk about our blue roan cow that likes to hang out on the walkway in the barn.
She camped out here last night in front of our house, and his little brother was the last guy in the barn last night. He must not have latched the door, so here she was laying by the house.
Yeah, this morning I came outside. I was letting River out, and River's barking at something, and I look around the corner, and that blue roan's bedded down here in the grass.
Any other breed would be someplace in some manger someplace, pooping in there or making a mess of something or finding their way into something. But them roans, they're always pretty good.
Yeah, and she's real trained in.
Oh,
you know,
God.
I didn't have to say nothing. She's like, oh, they're up already. I guess I gotta go back to the barn. She walked right back. Yeah.
And no cows ever have to go through that front door, so that's this is not their normal passageway.
But yeah, we're gonna go clean the stock tanks. We got 4 of them out back there. But
we got 3 out back, but I got 4 total, and we'll talk about them as we clean it out.
All right, let's get to it. But yeah, so the cow that we're referring to is her. And I know we've seen a couple comments asking why the heck is she roaming around the barn, not in a stall. Well, this is her spot right here, and this is our walkway to cross over the middle of the barn to get over the gutters. And that stall doesn't have a drinking cup, so we leave her untied so then she can kind of get to any water that she needs to. That's the main reason. And then plus that stall is narrower, and we don't have a cow mat there, so we throw some bedding on the walk, and then she can kind of roam around, get to a water cup. You'd probably be able to do that with a Holstein too, but if we let like a brown Swiss or a Jersey just roam the barn, they'd make a mess. They'd be pestering everybody, trying to steal feed, and they wouldn't be content. They'd be busy causing trouble. But anyways, our tank that we're going to clean today here is out back. Here's the tank we're talking about.
These are old milk tanks. When I was a kid, that's all everybody had. And this is a 300 gallon, and I think it's called a James Way. And what we did when we got it, we took the legs off it to make it lower, better for the cattle. But that's all stainless steel, and it's got like an insulated jacket, so that in the winter months it doesn't freeze nearly as hard. And there's lids. We have the lids. I never use them, but we could put them on, like when it's really cold, when the cattle aren't right here, like overnight, we could put them on to prevent the water from freezing. Or it wouldn't freeze as much.
Yeah, it's a pretty cheap tub when you think about it. You know, the only other people that would be buying something like this would be like a syrup or a sap guy.
Well, what happened was so back in the 80s into the early 90s, everybody was taking these out of their milk house, either putting bigger ones in or they quit, and they come obsolete. And right, they were going to different stuff. Now the cooler part probably still worked when this one was took out, but it was either too small or something. I want to think we paid maybe $50, $75, or $100. I mean, one of them I got for helping a lady cut some trees in her yard. She just gave it to me. Yeah, I got 3 of the 300 gallon, and then 1 is a 400, and I think one is a Mueller, and 2 are Muellers, and I don't know what the name is the other one, but yeah, they make excellent water. And I mean, you can, if you accidentally bump it with the Bobcat, it doesn't automatically make a hole. It puts a little dent in it, but that's...
Yeah, they should last forever.
Forever, it's the good stainless.
Yeah.
It's not just like today, everything isn't built like it was. So anyhow, we have this one, which is kind of our south side, and when we run our plate cooler in our milk house, we turn a valve on that would fill this only during the milking time. And then we have one up above there. Now that one's the closest one to where the gate is, where they lead into the pasture. That's got a float on, these non-siphoning floats. And then there's this pipe, but it goes to that pipe, and that gravity fed down to another one that's on the other side of this corral, for instance. So if we wanted to shut this corral for other things, then the cattle still have water in other spots. And then in here, this is in the back end of our barn. This is where we usually start milking, and this is the furthest end from the milk house. So we have this system here. I have lower and upper. So upper is the 2 upper tanks. Lower, of course, the tank we're cleaning right now, and then a big ball valve on it. When it's really cold, we never fill the upper ones because they freeze up anyway, and then the hose is froze outside. But the lower one, so it goes overhead, just the hose. In the winter, I just put a clamp on it, and there's another piece of plastic pipe there. I just slide that in there. And then when it gets really bitter cold, once in a while, because even if we shut it off, there's always a little water that may freeze, so I can actually pull it out and maybe finagle it up here so it stays warm. And then right away in the morning before I put the water in, I can just slide it out the hole. Don't have to worry about thawing that out. Or if it is froze, I pull it out and then it thaws out by itself. So that's how we do it in the winter. And then in the summer, we got extra hose, so then it goes down. We put one of these, they call them non-siphoning, and this part here is, and we got to just take our clamp, and that's our summer deal. So they'll fill during milking time, so then the water that we have it go through that plate cooler and comes through our line, through our barn. So whatever the cows drank during milking, otherwise it's filling our tanks during milking time, and then the float will shut it off so it doesn't have to make a mess beyond that. So that works pretty good. So we're cooling our milk and filling our stock tanks at the same time.
Yeah, and for any of you that are, you know, maybe have a couple cows that are looking for a watering option, you can carry water, but if you have any kind of livestock, if you can plumb water to wherever they are, it's going to save so much time and energy. You're gonna thank yourself, even if it's a bit of a headache to plumb water to your cattle.
So now, like these tanks, these stainless ones like this, you can't really find these anymore. They're all more or less snatched up for all sorts of things. Yeah, so I'm glad we got them when we did, because your farm store stock tanks, I think when I came here, I bought the one on the auction. It's some galvanized ones, and you know, you maybe get 10 years out of those things. And then if you bump them with your skid steer or something, they're very unforgiving. And so that one, I think we had it, so I was patching it up with tar to kind of get more time out of it. And eventually it became like a cheap feed bunk for a couple head that happened to be somewhere different for a little while, until finally it just ended up in the scrap yard. But these will last forever. But you get a little junk in there, we call it, you know, like, what'd you call that? When a cow takes a drink, she's still got food in her mouth. Backwash, or you get some other stuff blows in here. But I've had it where the whole herd will, in the summer, they kind of crowd together, and one would maybe take a dump in here. And so we find ourselves cleaning this tank out quite often, and there's not really a good way to prevent that from happening. I mean, you've got to have open water, and there's nothing better than these open tanks. Like in the summer, when these cows come home from the pasture, I mean, we got some ponds out there. Some of them are fenced off. There's a spring way in the back, but this isn't always where the cows go all the time. So if they come home, even just our 45 head, every cow drinks, I don't know, I mean, a good hot day, they could guzzle down 10 gallons in one stop. Each cow times 45, you could just literally see the water table, you know, drop. Well, you might be able to get 6 big cows around, 6, 7 cows around each one of them tanks. So they're all more or less able to drink without picking on each other. So now in these other barns, we got all those waters, those heated waters, where only one more or less can drink out of there at a time. But they're not milking cows, and they're real close to them. They just go to their bedding pack, so they're not all rushing to it at once. And milking cows, you want water, and you want good, clean water all the time. And that's, I mean, milk is mostly water, so without water, you ain't gonna get milk. Yeah, I had one time, this was like several years ago, that roan cow you guys were talking about, she was just the first calf, and this was in the spring. As soon as I started grazing the cows, so then I let the cows out in the morning. You know, they're out morning and night grazing, but so after milking, I let them out, and I'm scraping up in the barn, and most of the cows just run off the pasture. And I could hear this sound, and kind of like a cow pushing a calf. And you guys that got cows, you know what that sounds like a you know. And then I stopped scraping, and thought I heard something that didn't sound right. And I started scraping again, and then I heard it again. And I thought, well, there's something not right. So I come out back here, and that roan cow, she was a lot smaller then. But anyway, the rest of this bunch must have been here drinking, and they had her. She was in here with her head sticking out here, her butt sticking out over here, and her legs almost like a horseshoe wedged down in here. And it's almost kind of like an instant nightmare. And the first thought is, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to get her out of there? I was here myself, full of water, of course. So instantly I go to the phone and I didn't even start dialing, and then it dawned on me I can get the bobcat and the pallet fork. So I come racing over with the bobcat and the pallet fork. I took one of the forks off so I could get under one side, and I lifted it up nice and slow, and I dumped her out, and it was just like a fish flopping out of like a pail or something. And she slithered out right onto the ground here, and then she got up and she shook herself like a dog. And then I was looking at her, she's looking at me, and she storms off the pasture. So then you're like, everything's good. She's don't have a broken leg or something. You know, that's the one thing I was worried about. Then I had this big mess where I had to tear the float off quick so I didn't end up ruining something more. And then we had those 3 fish your brother had in here, and they're on the ground. And then I had to run with a bucket quick and go salvage them, get those in some water, and then clean it all back up, set everything back into place. So at the end, everything was okay. We've had these tanks. I mean, my dad had these already back in the early 80s. He had a couple of these there. My wife's father, he had several of them. Same setup. And we've been here, what, almost 30 years, and we've, you know, something like that. You know, you get the most bizarre things happen. And I know some of you guys, you probably know what I mean, where you had this certain thing that's been there forever, and then some real bizarre thing may happen with your cattle, or something gets caught up in such a way that you would never think would ever happen. Like up in the big pasture, the heifer pasture, and I think a while back you maybe videoed that concrete tank we have up there. We'll probably show you guys again this summer, or maybe put cattle up. It's an 800-gallon concrete tank, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's about this wide. What do we got here? Maybe 4.5, almost 5 feet wide. And I always thought long and thin is better. You know, you get more cattle around it. But the reason they make them wide is just for that purpose. If some animal would happen to get pushed in, she ends up on her back, she's not able to straighten herself back up. And if this divider wasn't in here, it wouldn't have been a problem. She would have straightened up, climbed back out, and we had a large foot bath going there. We'd have to clean it up. But
yeah, raising cattle is kind of like you just got baby-proof everything.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you just don't know. Well, I mean, so this milkman, they were interviewing milkmen, and you know, what's the most bizarre thing that ever happened, you know, on the route, and you know, back in the day when everybody, you know, was hauling milk, and the one guy said, well, where he came there to get the milk, and the farmer's still there cleaning up in the milk house or whatever, and or maybe it's still milking it or something, and then he said he gets in the milk house and he's doing his thing there, getting ready to pump the milk out, and then all of a sudden the cow comes in from the door that leads into the barn, and the farmer's right behind the cow, goes right around the milk tank, and goes right back out the same door. You know, it's just some bizarre thing where some animal gets loose and ends up, and didn't hurt anything, didn't mess nothing up, but it's just like, not something you're going to see every day.
Yeah, so in the comments down below, let us know if you've ever had any livestock getting a weird spot or a weird situation like any of those stories. We'd be interested to hear them.
We're gonna finish cleaning this out. We're gonna let it maybe get like 8-10 inches of water in, because we got a few cows here that may drink yet before milking time. And then during milking, the water will be turned on. Even if it runs over a little bit, it's cooling the milk and filling the tank all at the same time. This is our albino heifer, and that's I think that came out of one of the roans. I'd have to look in my books again, but I think so. So that's only 1/4 shorthorn, so that's kind of neat to get. And you can see she's a little shorter than the rest, but she's the same age. She'll never get taller. And then here's our bull, and you see how much taller they get, and I think it's because of the hormones that are, and well, I don't think he's 2 years old yet. We bought him from a herd that does a lot more genetics than we do. And
So that's gonna be it for the video. That tank's filling up right now. We're gonna give it a couple minutes so that them cattle back there have enough water. That's an overview of our watering setup there behind the dairy barn and how we keep our cows hydrated. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like we were saying, share your stories down in the comments below if you ever had a crazy experience like that where a cow gets stuck in a weird spot like that. Also, if you enjoyed and you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe and check out our other videos. We'll see you in the next one.